Hello and welcome to the Celtic Down Under Podcast. I'm your host Jared, and joining me tonight are Liam and Sean. How you going, Liam?
A lot better than I was at this time last week. I was I had my third vaccine last week, and it kind of knocked me daft for about 3 or 4 days. But pretty much back to normal now. So aye, all good here.
And how are you, Sean?
Good, yeah. It's COVID's ramping up as the temperature's ramping down, so changing one reason to not go outside for another.
We just like glitch, or we all good?
Oh, we're all
Yeah.
good.
Oh, good, yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a bit going on since the last week's podcast, but usually what happens is big time news breaks like the day after we record. So for once, it's actually landed in our favour down under. So we'll talk about the old Sydney tour that they're going to be doing in November. But we'll start off with review the game against Bodo Glimt. Now, yeah, I'll just get the starting lineups up. I'll throw it over to you, Sean, to let us know your thoughts on the game. But I think the thing for me is the starting lineup we went with wasn't what I expected. So Hart and goals, I wasn't expecting. So back on of Scales, Starfelt, Welsh, Ralston. Only one of them was what I was expecting, which was Starfelt. Midfielder Rogic, O'Reilly, and Bitton. I said it'd be either Bitton, and either O'Reilly and Rogic with Kalmax. That surprised me. And then Giakoumakis, Maeda, and Forrest up front. So completely threw me around on what I was expecting. What was your thoughts when the lineup came out, Sean? And also what your overall thoughts on the game?
Well, I didn't watch it live. I watched it. It was on at stupid o'clock for me, so I wasn't aware of the lineup beforehand. But yeah, it was pretty much a concession, like chucking it. I mean, it was the same thing. Like we talked a couple of weeks ago about who would you start against Wraith Rovers, and we were saying things like, "Oh, anyone who's one injury away from being a starter should be starting," and that was what you saw against Bodo Glimt. Everyone that was on the bench from before that could potentially be a starter came into the team. It wasn't a complete chucking the kids out kind of thing, but it was a right, who's my 12th to 18th players? You guys are in the starting lineup kind of thing. And then they played like it. We should have been 1-0 down after like 90 seconds. We were 1-0 down after 8 minutes. And if you watched 5 Bodo players against 3 of our defenders, the last time I seen something like that was the Hearts game in the first game of the season. Or was it first game? But anyway, the first month of the season. Yeah, it wasn't great. We had a couple of chances, but you can't say we deserved anything over the 2 legs, and certainly not on the night either.
Yeah, they deserved the result. Being realistic here, they were the dominant team. They played better, but I'm still going to look at it and go, that's where we want to be playing Ange ball in 2 years' time. So, yeah, I want to get your thoughts on the game now, Liam.
Well, I watched the game, but the thing is, I was high as a kite at the time. I had a fever of like nearly 40 degrees, so I don't remember that much of the game. I mean, from what I remember, we were all right for the first 20 minutes until that pinky elephant ran on and kicked Tom Rogic in the balls. But no, I have vague recollections of the game at best, but from what I do remember, the result, as you guys have said, was exactly as it should have been. They were the better team. They played the better football. They are going to be a team that will give most of the teams left in that tournament a game. Do not be surprised if they end up in the last 4 or possibly even going all the way. They surprised me with how good they were. Although, looking back on it, this is a team that beat Roma convincingly in the previous round. So should we really have been that surprised? Did we perhaps underestimate them in retrospect?
The only reason we were underestimating them was because they sold 3 or 4 of their best players. So we were just.
I was about to say, Sean. I think it was more not the team underestimated them, but as a support, I think we underestimated them. Yeah, as you said, Sean, because they sold 3 or 4 of their main guys. But as their manager does, he's been recruiting well, brought the right sort of guys in, and off they went.
Aye.
I think we can also put this Scandinavian teams are going to be rusty coming into February narrative to bed. That's twice in a row we've been pumped by teams that have done this so many times. They know how to be ready for a game in February. So that excuse, narrative, whatever you want to call it, can piss off for any future games against Norwegians, Swedes, Russians, whoever is not playing in January.
Aye. The thing is, good teams will play good football whenever they do. You know that. Yeah, it's a slight advantage, but it's not something that really we should talk about too much, I don't think. Although I've been saying for years that Scotland should adopt the same season as they have in Japan, which is March to November, which would just, make more sense from our weather, and also would mean we're better prepared for these type of games as well.
What's your take on that, Sean?
Yeah, I think Scotland should have a summer season. Yeah, I mean, our weather's not that dissimilar to the Scandinavian countries. Like we're in the same latitude as them. We get a bit of Gulf Stream to keep us a bit warmer, but I mean, even it's always pissing down, even if it's not freezing solid. They're playing in a plastic pitch. We're playing in a plastic pitch this weekend. Like. The difference really is, I don't know, like we could get more money from Sky as well, because the only time we get attention from Sky, the only time they lift their skirts up is when there's no English football on.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, we're in, there's those 2 months in the summer where there's no English football on. Why would that not conceivably increase what we can ask for from Sky in terms of TV money?
Well, at the moment, isn't it the A-League and the J-League that fill that gap to some extent?
Yeah, and nobody watches that. So like
exactly. So they wouldn't lose. They certainly wouldn't lose any viewers out of it, and they'd probably gain quite a bit.
And BT would always fill it with Aussie rules. I remember that. But I don't know.
Threw that one to you, Sean, because I'm not the one to ask about how much of a bog heap it is in the middle of February. Up in like Ross County or whatever. I wouldn't have a clue about that, so that's why I threw it to you guys.
It's not even just being in the conditions. It's trying to keep a pitch in a suitable condition as well for those months when there's like 5 hours of daylight and like hailstones and temperatures that barely get above zero. Like do you know what I mean? Like you can fully understand why these teams further north would opt for a plastic pitch. What they do nowadays is they just roll out these big thermal lights at night to keep it warm. But if you're a lower league team, you can't be affording that kind of electricity bill. That is the main concern, really, other than players being precious, is having grass to play on coming in out of winter.
What they need to do is hire groundskeeper Willie and they'll be laughing.
Yeah, right, I think if Sky can keep, like, their problem is they lose hundreds of thousands of subscribers in June and July every month. If they can keep, 50,000 times 20, 30, 40 pounds, whatever it is these days, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well, if anyone is listening, you got an opinion on that, let us know in the comments. Post it on our socials. Tag us at Celtic Down on Twitter. Let us know your thoughts on that, because I'd like to get a feel of what everyone's thinking on that. Should we switch the seasons around? Who knows? Liam thinks we should. Sean thinks it wouldn't be a bad idea. Me, don't know. So let us know. All right, so we'll jump into the bore draw from the weekend against Hibs. So Hart in goals, Taylor Starfelt, Carter Vickers, Juranovic. The back line I thought we'd have against Glimt, but at Glimt we played against Hibs, sorry. Hatade, McGregor and Rogic in the midfield, and then Jota, Maeda and Abada up front. And the funny thing is, I actually reckon the best performing defender for Celtic on the game was Doidge when he got in the way of a shot and cleared the shot himself.
Yeah.
There's footage of Starfelt dicking around with the ball in the corner again and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, it wasn't a pretty game, but yeah. What do you think of the game, Liam?
It's just one of those games where things just didn't click and you just felt they weren't going to click. It was just Look, we've been on a phenomenal run since the new year. You know, a 9-point swing in our favour in the league. We were due a bad game in the league. And even the games that we've won recently, apart from when we scalped the Huns, we haven't actually played that great. You know, Dundee United, we struggled. Dundee, we struggled. You know, I think we were due a wee wake-up call. And thankfully, owing to the capitulation across the river at Ibrox, it ultimately has very little impact on the grand scheme of things. But that's us had our bad game now, and I don't think we'll have another one.
Well, you could argue we've had 4 bad games, but either way, you're right though. It's you know, they've dropped points when the referees are getting it on Sports Scene. Anyone else, and they get a free pass. So they got it again from Van Bronckhorst, who never calls out referees, anyway.
Yeah.
But no, you led with the point that I was going to make as well, which is that, you know, to take it in the wider context, that we've been sensational since we came back in January. Was it 10 domestic wins in a row, including the 2 lower league cup teams? So that's always going to come to an end at one point. And you can look at it as recent form as 1 win from 4, which is not great. But I still think you need to focus on the wider domestic picture, in the same way that European performance is like, we don't just view that as, oh, we got beat by a better team. We view that as, effing hell, we've not won a knockout game since 2004. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's the wider context does color the narrative a bit, you know. And you're right, we would have been absolutely filthy if it was, you know, we'd have still been top of the league no matter what. But having them drop points, I know it shouldn't, but it does actually kind of give a bright tinge to what has been a pretty poor week, you know.
See, that's the other thing about being top of the league. With the, is it 10 or 11 games that are left, we don't necessarily need to win every game. We just need to do what Rangers do or do better. So if they draw and we draw, nothing changes hands. If they lose and we win, fantastic. But we play them twice more. 2 draws would suit us fine, I think.
Well, I think we're playing after them this weekend, but I think we'll talk about that later. But yeah, I mean, we were poor. We definitely were poor. Like, you can look back to starting from like the Hun game or whatever and work your way backwards to 1st of January, and we're getting 20 shots on goal each game or whatever. And then the last few games we've been struggling to get a dozen shots at goal. And yeah, look, it's putting crosses into the box for Maeda. You know, the guy's 5'7" or whatever he is. It's not ideal. And even then, like, even if you're struggling to do things like that, struggling to thread, we were just off it as well. Like, there was one pass from Starfelt that was just like, it didn't even travel the 5 yards it needed. Do you know what I mean? There was Hatate, I lost count of the amount of times he gave the ball away. He did a couple of turns on it, and apart from that, he was like a man down for the rest of the game. Rogic did one run. It looked like he was going to have a good day, and then did nothing else after that. O'Reilly came on, looked decent, but honestly, there was most of the team were just subpar. A couple of players got pass marks, but since one of them was Greg Taylor, what sort of output are you going to get at the attacking end when he's your star performer and he's not even doing that great?
On that point, though, something I would like to add is that I saw a lot of things on social media after the game. Well, in that kind of a 2-hour window between us drawing and not knowing what Rangers were going to do, right? A lot of people kind of threw the toys out the pram. But look, it's okay to be disappointed when we don't win, especially when it's a game that we should win, because Hibs have not been great recently, right? But it's important that we keep perspective, and I really don't like this trend that some of the support seem to have now of singling out particular players. It just becomes fashionable to come down hard on particular players when the entire team have underperformed. I mean, you said yourself, right? Hatate wasted so many passes at the weekend. Yet I did not see one negative comment about him. I saw about 15 about Maeda, right? Mm-hmm. And to me, they were both probably 5 or 6 out of 10 performances from both of them, right? You know, Greg Taylor's another one who gets it in the neck all the time. Starfelt is another one who gets it in the neck. But when the whole team underperforms, I don't think it's fair to say he's crap. So, but yeah, the whole team were crap. Okay, we didn't play well as a team that day. Let's just move on. And I know I'm probably asking too much of that, but I really do wish our fans could just have a wee bit more patience sometimes.
I mean,
Every time you
Hatate.
say something like that, Liam, I just say, imagine if Twitter existed back in the day when Larson first debuted. It's all I've got to say.
Christ, yeah. Alec
Because-
Ferguson wouldn't have lasted 6 months at Man United if
Exactly.
Twitter was around then.
Yeah, exactly. So it's ridiculous. Like, it's a bit of a cesspit. Like, there's all it takes is one little thing to get going, and it triggers someone, and then they say something, and then next thing you know, you've got 10 or 11 people retweeting it, and then you got other people sharing it, and then, like, talking about this Australia thing later on, I'm going to talk about this a bit later then as well, but it's like, as you said, it's the cool thing to do, to just pile on and be original, make up your own decision, like, on things. Like, at the end of the day, I look at Sean, it's pretty obvious you're not a massive fan of Starfelt, going based on everything that we've said on this podcast. You've got your reasons, fine. For me, I can understand. I think he's playing out of position. He's a right-sided centre back. Why is he playing left side? Because we don't have anyone for there. But at the same time, I can understand your point of view, Sean. It's called being an adult. So I'm not going to crack the shits if he makes a mistake and throw the toys out of the pram. We get on with it. It's the best option we've got for that position on the team sheet at the moment. So we roll with it.
Yeah, look, and I'll just point out 17 minutes. I haven't mentioned Mr. Starfelt yet, and also and you're right. You are right. Look, I don't. The first, like, I can show you my messages. I didn't bag Starfelt privately or publicly this week, and the player that did get my target was Hatate, and how he came out for the second half was beyond me. There was just stuff like he just wasn't running like 5 yards to do a press. Do you know what I mean? And I was kind of, the first time I noticed that, I was like, all right, okay, this is kind of reminds me of that Hearts game where he was really poor in the first 10 minutes and then just woke up and ripped them apart. But except this time he didn't wake up. And in the way, like, when somebody plays the way I was watching, like, if I'm playing a game, different levels, granted, but in terms of the effort and productivity, relatively speaking, if I was playing like that, it would have been because I'd had double figures of units of alcohol the night before. So, like, I was literally watching it thinking, has he been drinking last night? Like, honestly, that was literally what I was thinking. What it looked like to me. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe he just didn't like to travel. Maybe he did. Maybe he was drinking. I don't know. Like, but it was way, way, way under the level. It was, you're talking about like 4, 5, 6 out of 10. I would have had him like 2 or 3 out of 10. Hatate, like, it was that bad. And Hibs had a good game system that nullified us. Namely that whenever we try to press, they just hit the deck and just see if the referee gives it. And most of the time he was. And then when they are on the deck, just roll about for a bit. They were kicking the balls away. Hibs players were literally bringing balls onto the pitch and leaving them on there. Like, they were literally doing that. They were literally putting an extra ball on the pitch. In the last minute of injury time, a ball boy just chucked the ball on the pitch. Like, do you know what I mean? It wasn't a goal kick or anything. He just chucked the ball on the pitch just randomly. So they knew what they were doing. Like, it was a game system that they were doing. And Sean Maloney coming out and saying that I think he said in 3 different interviews that Starfelt's tackle on Nesbitt was shocking. I've watched it like 12 times and there's nothing in it.
No.
It wasn't a booking. Like, the commentator said, oh, that's only a booking because it's like a rugby booking where it's an accumulation for all the other players. And I'm like, okay, wrong, but it's wrong to do that. But he's probably right. That's probably what it is. It's probably toting up. And no matter how many times I'm watching it, I'm like, I can't see how I can see it's a foul, but I can't see how it's a yellow. I can't see how he's got injured. I can't see how Sean Maloney can single him out for that tackle. Do you know what I mean? I don't get it at all.
It's a bit rich though. Sean Maloney singling out a centre back for that when Porteous does that every single week. Like,
yeah, and
let's be honest here.
He's got
his own hatchet merchant in his own club. So shut up and deal with him. Don't talk about our players like that, Sean. Because at the end of the day, it's like, I can see it was a foul. I can't see where the yellow card says. You're saying it had to have been for an accumulation of fouls in the team. Otherwise, what was it for?
Yeah, I mean, even within that game, if you look at like Starfelt staying on his feet, Nesbitt's backing into him. Starfoot's trying to get around him to get to the ball. Do you know what I mean? Like, how can... Yeah, he's committed a foul because Nesbitt's played it well and kicked the ball away. But look at the Stevenson tackle on Abada. Ball's 10 foot away. He's not aiming for the ball. He's done a sliding tackle aiming a leg at Abada's calf. He's not trying to get the ball. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can talk about outcomes of injuries or you can talk about intent. And there was no intent from Starfelt and there was all intent from Stevenson. And as you talk about, Porteous does it every single week.
Yeah, and it's one of those kind of pet peeves of mine. It's like the other one which you hear every week is, oh, if that was in the penalty box, it was a penalty. And I'm like, well, either it's a foul or it isn't. Where it happens shouldn't matter.
It's irrelevant.
That's the other one that really annoys me. But like you say, Sean, it's that rugby referee mentality of the cumulative effect. But that's not how football rules are written. It shouldn't be a factor.
The funny thing is, I'm going to throw the two games that we've just spoken about together. Against Bodo Glimt, one of our guys, I can't remember who it was, gets knocked over, gets fouled, is down. They go on the counter attack and score their first goal. There was more contact in that tackle where it was play on and our guy's down than there was in the Nisbet Starfelt thing. But Starfelt gets a yellow. Scottish referees. There you go.
Yep, totally agree.
Yeah, and Clancy was buying it all day. Like, he was buying what they were selling. And that really contributed to the overall frustration and nullifying our game. And hopefully, when we come to Celtic Park, that I think the home advantage has something to do with that, the noise of affirmation from the crowd and stuff like that. But it's still frustrating. It's still a lot, and these are not things that VR is going to fix. This is just game management.
Stupid decisions, that's all it is.
Yeah. It's just lack of quality overall, isn't it?
Yep. All right, we'll crack on, guys. So, player focus, Dazen Maeda. Sean, what do you want to say about that?
Well, it was Liam kind of touched on it there when he was talking about how Maeda was the target for these things. And I think it was almost as much as because he's missed that sitter against Bodo Glimt and he's had a few other chances. I have a concern that he might not fit in with this system we have of trying to play against the low block. So, you've got Kyogo come off, he'll come off sometimes. 1-2 and turn. He'll do double moves, triple moves. Maeda just seems to be, right, I'm fast. I can time my run. If you find the ball in the channel, I'll get it. And we don't really, with teams doing this low block, 20 bodies in the box, I don't see how that fits Maeda's style. He's not a tricky player. He's just a kind of direct player.
I can tell you exactly who he's reminded me of, Sean. Anyone in Australia who has watched the A-League for years, Maeda is the Japanese Archie Thompson.
Okay.
Gets the ball, runs hard, tries to get him behind. If it doesn't happen, then he struggles. He can rack up goals pretty quickly.
Yeah, because I've been trying to think of a similar player we've had in recent years at Celtic, and we don't really have many. We don't have too many direct strikers, outside of European games, when do we get space in behind? It's not generally a thing that we get to do. The last one, I can't even think, honestly. Can't think of one, to be honest, off the top of my head. Can you?
No.
Maybe that's why someone like Henri Camara came up and failed. Maybe that's because that's the type of player he was, I know Bellamy liked to play like that, but he also had enough about him other than that he could, he could still succeed.
Could be Liam's, mate. Robbie Keane. There you go.
Oh, don't get me started on that wee fanny.
Yeah,
I would have said that just to set you off. That was the only reason brought him up.
He's playing at Ibrox next month, and they can fucking keep him as far as I'm concerned.
But I would still have him as more of a Kyogo style player. I just don't think we've had players in Maeda's mold succeed before. I'm happy to keep him around. I think he could be a useful asset, particularly in Europe, but and for the cost that we're paying. But I don't know. I'd rather have Giacomakis. I'd rather have Kyogo. Yeah.
What I would say, just as a counterpoint to that. Now, bear in mind, Maeda fanboy here. Okay, I've been championing the guy for a year before Celtic even signed him. Right. I freely admit I've got a bit of a bias when I say this, but I saw him play for Matsumoto Yamaga, my local team, 2.5 years ago, I saw him play more recently last year for Yokohama Marinos. And in both teams, he played a very different role, right? Yamaga were basically relegation fodder, right? And after they sold Maeda, they duly got relegated. But for them, his whole game was he was the outball. Like, they had a backs to the wall defensive thing, and Maeda was the guy who would get the ball and try and run with it and make something happen, right? Thankless shift, but every time I saw him play, he was man of the match because he was the only guy in the team that looked like he had anything really going for him. But then when he moved on to Yokohama, he very much became a full-on striker, very much like as part of a front two pairing. Now, that ties into what you said, Sean. Celtic don't typically play two up front, so that's where Maeda might run into trouble. But the point I'm trying to get to is I've seen him adapt his game to suit a new team, and after a time, it's worked. So if he has to change his style of play again to fit in at Celtic, given time, given support, given the right coaching, I think he could do it. He's an adaptable player. That is one of his greatest assets.
Can you imagine if we were playing teams that had like their defence on the halfway line, kind of like how like the chance that Bodo Glimt had the other night, where our defence is on the halfway line and the guys and Joe Hart saves it fair enough. But like, imagine if we were playing teams with a line that high. Maeda's gonna have a field day, but that just doesn't happen. Like, it doesn't happen for us. It didn't happen in the first leg against.
We're playing teams like that, Sean. You'd want to play two up front. You'd want to have Maeda and Kyogo. Let them just run them ragged.
So just win the ball, whatever, outside our own 18-yard box, and look, we've got players with enough quality that they can drop it into that space between the keeper and defence.
Either way, I think it'll be interesting to revisit this in 6 months' time and see where Maeda is. I think he will fit in given time, but jury's still out. I would freely accept that,
Yeah, and if I'm led to believe we're obligated, he's still on loan, but we're obligated to sign him or something. I don't know why. I'm guessing there's some sort of bonus-related reason.
Yeah, I believe it's a contractual thing. I don't know the full ins and outs of it, but yeah, it's some kind of... We can't actually register him completely as a Celtic player until July.
Yeah, there's probably a sell-on clause for his previous club, which expires at a certain date or something like that.
Oh God, that would be Yamaga. God, they could do with the money as well. They've just been relegated again.
It's the only thing I can think of, really.
Aye, I think you might be onto something there. Aye.
All right, we'll jump on to the next topic. Contract rebels, Dembele and Doak. Now, Andrew's come out and said that he's just waiting for the right game to give Dembele a run out. He's fit and he wants to play him, so that's good. Doak, haven't seen him in the first team squad since the game against the Rangers. Been impressed by what I've seen by him. What's your take, Sean? Do you think we'd be able to sign either of them to a contract extension? Because Doak's been linked with Liverpool and Dembele's out of contract end of the season.
I'd like to think they would both stay, because if those boys and their advisors have any nous, they'd be looking at the fact that Celtic's backup winger at the moment is James Forrest, and he is not within Ange's favour. So unless they're expecting us to sign anyone else, there's a pretty clear pathway for them there into the team. But
there's a pathway for both there, Sean, to be honest with you, because you've got Dembele as a right winger, Doak played left wing. So your options are James Forrest and Mikey Johnson as your backups, or you give these guys a game. So back to what you were saying?
Yeah, and I don't think, I agree with you. I don't think anyone would... nobody's going to be like, why is Mikey not playing or why is Forrest not playing if you put Doak or Dembele in? Fans are going to be excited. Maybe not if it's like, you have to remember they're going to have bad games, like as all young players do. But yeah, like I did read the interview that you alluded to, and the way he was saying it was like, if they don't want to be here, then they won't get opportunities. He says he only wants. So but the way he was saying it, and then he kind of said, "Oh, but Dembele's different because he's been injured." So he's almost came out and indirectly said, "Well, Doak seems to not want to be here, and that's why he's not getting a chance." So I'm more concerned about. Do you know what? I'm concerned about both of them, to be honest. Like Dembele's been around for so long, and Doak, from what Andrew's saying, doesn't sound like he sounds like he wants to go elsewhere.
Martin in the comments is saying we need to stop letting our young talents go elsewhere. 100% agree with you on that, without question. That is needs to stop. Like, there needs to be that pathway. The Colts coming in this season was a good starting point, but then what's the plan long term? Because if you're going to want to sign guys like Doak, who's 16, Dembele's 19 now. Dembele's at the point where he needs to be playing first team football once he's fit. Doak's at that point where he needs to know what the pathway is. So it's pretty simple. Are the Colts going to be playing in the Lowland League again next year? Are they going to be coming into a revamped third division or whatever it is down the bottom?
Mm-hmm.
What's the deal going to be? We need to figure this out because there needs to be a pathway.
Yeah, and look, if Owen Moffat did an interview as well where he was very humble about being given an opportunity in the first team, and I certainly don't get that impression from these two. Owen Moffat was like, "Oh, if you told me at the start of the season I'd play 3 first team games, I'd have been absolutely wild about the chance and stuff." You know, he's absolutely making all the right noises about.
And Dane Murray's coming across with the same sort of talk as well, so it's good. It's good to hear that. But the thing with Doak, right, is it's not that he's making the wrong noises. It's just we haven't heard anything.
Other than
hearing noise on Twitter, that he's
Yeah.
linked with this and all that stuff, but we haven't heard anything specifically from him. Dembele, we always knew with Karamoko that when he's playing like what is it, under 20s or something, as a 13-year-old, that there's a player there. We always knew it. We get him that debut and we develop him. If he moves on and if he doesn't establish himself with us and he makes a move to the wrong club, he's going to put himself in Islam Farouz territory.
Yep.
So
That's
he's
definitely-
basically on that teetering on the edge. Does he stay with us and sign another 2-3 year deal with us, and then in 12 months' time you establish yourself, play a full season, then we can let you have your move and we make some money, fine. Or do you want to make your move now, and what happens? You run the risk. It's entirely up to him.
Yeah, there's a slight difference as well in that Doak is 16 and Dembele's 19. So Doak is very much within the mold of all these other ones. He's still not signed any professional contract with anyone, as far as if I understand it correctly. So he's very much in the Liam Morrison and whatever that goalkeeper that went to Watford, that kind of territory of, like, you know, first professional contract kind of thing. Whereas Dembele's a bit different. There's no real rumours linking him with, you know, if you're 19, like, I mean, if you go to Liverpool or Chelsea at 19, you're going straight out on loan. Do you know what I mean? You're not going there to work with the Liverpool coaches. 16, yeah, okay, you go to Bayern Munich, you're going there to work with the Bayern Munich coaches. You know, you're going to get world-class coaching. That's the appeal, right? Nobody thinks at 16 that they're going to play for Bayern Munich or Liverpool. They're going there to get that world-class coaching experience. Dembele, being a bit older, he's not really in that window. He's going over to get shifted out straight on loan if he does go there. Otherwise, he's going.
Yeah. If Doak ends up at Liverpool, he's basically doing the Billy Gilmore role that he did when he went to Chelsea. Make the move down there, spend a few years dominating the youth academy, go out on loan a few times, and then what? That's the path I can see for him. Give it another 2 seasons with us, you're laughing. Then you can walk that treaded path down, all the way down to Southampton if you want. And then you get your move to Liverpool a year or 2 later. By then you're 23 years old and you're at Liverpool. You might actually get a chance in the first team.
That's it, isn't it? These players are not being attracted away by Southampton or like Watford. Well, they are, but you know, I guess that goalkeeper. But they're generally being attracted away by these teams that are just hoarding players, like, which they're trying to stop them doing. These teams literally employ teams of staff to monitor their players on loan. Like, they've got like 60 players out on loan or whatever, and they literally have a loan manager. We don't have a loan manager. There's no Scottish team in Scotland that has a loan manager. I'd be surprised if there's any team outside of England, Spain, Italy, or Germany that has a loan manager. Surely that's a problem with the system, right? I mean, and look, there's employment law that's outside football that stops us from, you know, Jean-Marc Bosman or whatever stopped all that. Andy Webster rule, stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. Like, it's funny because if you look at the US sports, players can't move freely like they do here.
They're contracted to the league, and then their
Mhm.
contracts just get transferred within the franchises. Edward
And-
in the comments has gone, what's happened with Johnny Kenny? I've just done a quick Google search for you, mate. He's been out because he's had COVID, and then he was a close contact of someone else who had it. So Anne just said that
Yeah.
he's just back in training not long ago.
Yeah, I think he's in a theoretical squad for the St Mirren game.
Yep.
He was in the training pictures. But yeah, anyway, yeah, Doak probably gone. Dembele, I'd be more hopeful on Dembele, but I still think probably he's had enough. He's sick of being kicked and he's going to go.
The thing is, so whether we want to keep these players long term as, first team players or not, the issue is protecting the investment, because I think we all agree these are two guys that are going to go for multi-million-pound in the future, wherever they go. And Celtic need to do all they can to make sure they at least get a cut of that. So even if there's like an agreement with the likes of Dembele or Doak to say, look, okay, in a year's time we'll sell you, but sign this just now so we get 10 million or whatever when you do go. Because then the onus is on them to show that they're worthy of a big move, and then likewise the onus is on Celtic to play them to maximise their market value. So
sounds like
both
you're
parties benefit.
sounds like you've been hanging out with Ralph Ragnick or something there, Liam. The whole, Stolzberg, sort of setup. That's what that sounds like to me. Yeah, no, but it's a good idea.
Forget Ralph Radnick. Unfortunately, these days I look more like Ralph Wiggum, but that's another story.
Hang on, that's wrong.
There we go.
I know it's not the right one, but it's the same show.
Close enough.
All right. So we'll jump into the next one, the main event of the podcast. This could be over in 30 seconds. It could be, a fiery combo that gets the comment section going and all sorts of hate and that on Twitter, and off we go. So Celtic will be playing in the Sydney Super Cup in November 16 to 20 over here. So as soon as you see that, and it was like, it's going to be Celtic, it's going to be Rangers, you're like, it's going to be Sydney FC, and it's going to be Western Sydney Wanderers because it's in Sydney. Now, first thing, the amount of shit I've seen online about people tagging South Melbourne Football Club, Angers' old NSL club, and saying, oh, we shouldn't be doing anything that's got Rangers in it. We should be playing South Melbourne. They're going to Sydney, not Melbourne, first of all. Wrong city. Second of all, the standard is ridiculous. If we're going to play South Melbourne, we might as well play against our Colts. And the third thing is, I'm just going to rattle something off here. The actual statement that came out was, New South Wales government has secured an exciting new international football event, which will see some of the world's best clubs playing in Sydney in 2022 and 2025. The Sydney Super Cup is a 14 mini-series featuring two high-profile international teams against Sydney's A-League clubs, Sydney FC and Western Sydney Wanderers. The inaugural event is set to make history with the traditional Scottish rivals Celtic and Rangers coming out to play their first ever derby outside of Scotland. And then it creeps on about all the usual thing, the usual political spiel. So the thing that jumped out off that for me, 2025 as well. Is there a chance it's going to happen again in 3 years' time? I don't know if you guys saw that, Sean and Liam, but first of all, I want to get your takes as guys who have grown up over in Scotland. What's your take on this? Is this being a friendly, in inverted commas, watering down the Glasgow Derby and the hatred and all that stuff? Or is it okay for you? What are your thoughts? We'll throw it to you first, Sean.
Well, this was not the first time this is happening, obviously, but it's not the first time it's been mooted. It was suggested in the past, set in the USA rather than Australia. Look, I think most of the I've actually not listened to the Axon pod yet from last night. I see the headline is why we shouldn't do this, so I've not listened to it yet to hear the rationale. Have either you guys listened to it yet?
No, not yet.
I listened to about 20 minutes of it and turned it off because I'm I understand the point of view, but at the same time, having been watching Celtic pretty much since I was, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old, and getting up to watch games at stupid o'clock all the time, I'm not the person to be commenting on if this should or shouldn't happen based on what's happening back home in Scotland. For me, any chance I'm going to see my team playing over here in the country that I'm in, I'm all for that. Even though I'd rather Celtic was playing as anyone but Rangers, at the end of the day, I don't care. I'll be going to see it. I haven't seen my team play live since 2011. So, yeah.
Yeah, look, I feel I've been away for, even before I was in Australia, I was in Qatar, so I feel I've been away long enough that I'm not really in touch with the feeling of how people are in Scotland. So I would have been interested. I'm going to listen to it because I'm interested to hear their rationale, which they're obviously very upfront about, saying no. Maybe some people feel we shouldn't be in cahoots with Sevco. We used to do that with sponsorship, and nobody really complained back then because we were getting big chunks of cash for it. And I think probably the same thing applies here. We're going to get big chunks of cash for it. I mean, I'm definitely going to go. Unless, maybe a bit of a problem if they have the game on the Wednesday or Thursday and then travel over might be an issue on a work day. But yeah, assuming that the Celtic Sevco game will be on the weekend, I'll definitely be there. Hopefully John can scab us some tickets. Hopefully it's in the big 83,000 seater stadium that they've got in Sydney.
Yeah, that's where it's going to be.
Yeah, good. So yeah, like we're not, you and I we're not in the same kind of boat as people in Scotland that think it's not right. The only way I can take their perspective on it is if I think back to when Celtic did their last trip to Australia, and I was in Scotland at that time. And it was what year was it? Was it Strachan years? 2008, something like that. 2007. I can't remember exactly. And they came down, and my main gripe from our perspective in Scotland then was it was a lot of travel, and there was a bit of a body clock issue with changing time zones. And honestly, that was it. I was happy that they were getting some sunshine. I was happy they were doing a pre-season training camp. I was happy they were getting some extra cash, playing some high-profile games in front of lots of fans. And you know, the distance and time zones was the only thing I really concerned myself with that time. So unless someone makes that point, I don't really get their point. We're still using, if your point is we shouldn't be in cahoots with Sevco, well, we're still using their buses, so maybe that should be your first target.
Well, yeah. I've got a funny take for you as well, Sean, on that, but I'll let Liam jump in first.
Well, just a general point on this. It's easy to have strong opinions about something when it doesn't directly affect you, right? The guys in Scotland are saying, what are we doing going to Australia? We shouldn't help the Huns. We shouldn't. It's like, look, you're not an Australian Celtic supporter or a Celtic supporter in this part of the world. Because I'll be honest, as soon as this got announced, I started looking at flights to Australia in November, right?
And in 9 hours, Liam, you're good.
My wife is in for a shock that we're going to be spending our first anniversary probably going to watch Celtic play the Huns. But you know, no, all joking aside, it's a 7 or 8 hour flight for me. It's doable. You know, it's the only Celtic game in the next 18 months that's probably going to be doable unless I somehow manage to go back to Scotland this year when things calm down. The fact that about 8 of the 12 hours it takes to get there involves flying over Russia might be a problem, but let's not go there. Yeah, it's I just think how it doesn't materially affect you if you're a Celtic supporter or a Rangers supporter in Scotland, right? One game played on the other side of the world when there's no domestic football happening does not materially affect you in any way. Why do you even have a strong opinion about it? I really just don't. I don't get that logic. This thing of like, I want it and I only want it for me. I don't want it for anybody else. If we truly want to be a global brand, we need to start thinking globally, and that means playing games overseas. Man United did it years ago. Liverpool did it. Barcelona and
last year.
Yeah, Barcelona and Chelsea played in Saitama 2 years ago, right?
I've got one for you, Liam.
Yeah.
Real Madrid and Barcelona travel over every year, whether it's to the States or Japan or Hong Kong or whatever, or
Yep.
Singapore, and they'll play against each other. And that's the biggest rivalry in Spanish football. So at the end of the day, it's a friendly. It's not. Would you rather our team, when the league shuts down for 6 weeks, would you rather our boys just who aren't playing sit at home and run around in circles, just run laps of the thing, trying to stay somewhat fit, not match fit, or would you rather them come over here, get some warm weather training because it's the middle of November, it's going into our summer here, so get a bit of warm weather training, play a few games. At the moment, it looks like it's just us versus Rangers, but there's a potential that, from what I'm hearing, there's potential they may also have each team play one of the A-League clubs as well. So potentially play 2 games, get some training, and stick together as a club and keep some match fitness. Have a think about it on that side of it from a performance level.
Can you name, so if you think about in England, right, the 2 teams that have the biggest, you correct me if you disagree, but or
Right.
tell me if you disagree, but the 2 teams that hate each other most in England would be Man United and Leeds United.
Possibly
that's
Man United,
West Ham.
possibly Man United, Liverpool, but well,
Yeah,
aye.
well, Man United and Leeds United, when they play each other, the fans sing about the other teams' fans who have died and celebrate. You know, Leeds fans sing "I like to Munich, Munich." The Man United fans sing about the place where the Leeds fans were stabbed in Europe, Istanbul. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So they hate each other, right? And the 2 of them came over to Perth, where I live, 2 years ago, July 2019. Played in front of 60,000 at Perth Stadium. How's that different? Like any rationale you have, like doesn't stand up to that kind of, it's it's the same, right?
Aye. Now, a wee question for you, Jared. Is it confirmed that the other 2 teams are going to be these 2 Australian teams?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Right,
2 cities,
okay.
yeah.
I've actually got
Just-
hang on. I've got the graphic here. If I can just get my phone's being weird. But there's the graphic.
Right. Yeah. Aye. Okay.
Even though it's blurry,
Right.
yep.
Because I had a wee brain fart this afternoon. Just when I was reading the news and whatever. Because I actually thought, wouldn't it have been a nice gesture if we could have invited Shakhtar Donetsk and Dynamo Kiev to play in the tournament? That would have been a nice touch, but it's not. It's not going to happen.
Bit far away as well.
Well,
Yeah.
no any further than Scotland, is it?
No, I meant in time. I meant
Aye,
time-wise.
aye. But
Yeah, who knows what's going on. So anyway,
yeah.
what I wanted to touch on as well though was you guys have covered a lot, but I said I've got some stuff here for you. So I'm seeing posts like on Twitter, Celtic shared, right? They want to buy shares in the club, they want a spot on the board. Following the proposed appointment by Bernard Higgins, the Celtic board have now seemingly jumped into bed with our rivals by arranging a friendly tournament with them in Australia. We await official confirmation, but make no mistake, this will be opposed vehemently by supporters. That's a tweet they put out. Now,
That's so excessive.
that's gone ridiculous. That's blown up. I replied on there. Didn't hear anyone complaining when we had a preseason tour of France together prior to the 10 in a row season last year. Even though we didn't play each other, we're still on the same tour.
Yeah.
For us Aussie Celtic fans, this is great news like that. Now, you got that. And then you've got guys like the Cynic. They're putting out all sorts of stuff as well, which I've had a bit of a go back at. But it's, for me, the wording on that shared one is an agreement with Rangers. Now, I had a bit of a chat with someone today. Not going to say who. This isn't in the no knowledge. This is not hard to find out. 2 or 3 tweets and you can probably get this same info. It wasn't booked as Celtic versus Rangers. Celtic and Rangers. It was originally this promotion company wanting to put this on, right? Backed by Football Australia, who have gone, okay, let's do it in Sydney. We've got the 2 Sydney teams. Angers at Celtic. Let's get them. Okay, how are we going to market this? Oh, if we can get Rangers to come, that'll market it and help sell tickets. Cool. So Rangers were the throw-in team. They were the throw-in team. So people got to stop saying we're in bed with Rangers board. We're not. They're the friggin' throw-in team.
I would also point out that
Celtic is the main event. The 2 Sydney teams, because of where it is, and then they're the leftovers. We need another team. Okay, let's put them in so we can sell tickets. That's it. Pretty friggin' simple.
Yeah. And Celtic announced it without mentioning Sevco. It was just announced as we're going to Sydney to play in a tournament officially.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
Sevco announced it, have they put something out?
Don't know.
No, I don't know. Check.
Probably waiting to see if this month's wages check's clear. No, but
Yeah,
this whole thing though is just so childish. It really is. Like ever since 2012, right, when they went bust, I had hoped that a wee bit of time apart might have cooled things down, might have taught their fans a bit of humility. It might also have helped us just cool our jets a bit. But it's not. Both sides have got angrier and more resentful and more hateful of each other. And I'm tired of it. I'm so tired of it.
It's getting pettier. Like, at the end of the day, they died. They're a new club. They're back in the league. They're in the league, not back in the league. Their fans saying they're back in the league is what has caused all this. Because the continuation lie and the victim lie of their fans has fired them up, and then that in turn has pushed it onto the Celtic Dars fighting battles on Twitter with idiot Rangers fans, and then the next thing you know, you're where we are now. It's ridiculous.
The thing is, the common retort from Huns whenever you say, we want nothing to do with you, it's like, well, why do you do nothing but talk about us then? And tweets like that, pish from Celtic shares or whatever, that just validates their point. They call us obsessed. They call us, oh, you can't do anything without us. And that just bloody validates it. It just validates their belief that we are somehow obsessed with them. So the Celtic statement was brilliant because the Celtic statement did not mention them at all. It just mentioned a 4-team tournament, right?
Yeah.
And this reactionary pish really needs to stop. It's not helping anybody. It's just making more people angry. And the last thing we need in the world right now is more people getting needlessly angry.
So Liam and Jared, I'll ask you the same. I'll put it to both of you, right? I'm doing this hypothetical game in my head where I'm trying to think, right, Celtic are coming to Australia, but not to my hometown. They're going to Sydney. Okay, I'm going to go over. At which point, which opposition would I say, right, oh, that's not worth getting a flight for? Do you know what I mean? Like, Celtic Western Sydney Wanderers clears the bar, yeah? If it's just Celtic against the Sydney teams, I'm still going over, yeah? Celtic against any other SBFL team, I'm still going over. Celtic against any team that we could potentially face in a European competition, I'm still going over. Maybe, where's that line? Where do you stop? Is it Aldershot Town or something? Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, where's the... Is it...
Once you get to Shrewsbury Town, I reckon.
Kelty Hearts,
something like that, or Kelty Hearts.
Yeah, like it's a really, really low line. Like, and that's the point. Everyone's like, oh, we're just using like getting in bed with. No, like we're down here. We're going to go see it. It has to be a pretty low bar for us to not get in a flight. For me to not get in a flight.
The talk is like Liam coming from Japan, which is an 8-hour flight from Tokyo to Sydney, and then you've got the guys over at the CSCs and stuff in New Zealand. They're all over it saying they're going to come over. All the CSCs over here in Australia, I haven't seen their Facebook pages but with this much traction and comments and all that sort of stuff in good 18 months to 2 years. This is insane. This is good. It's like really stoking a fire in Celtic fans down here, and we've got a big support down here. If you were to go, who would be the most well-supported European clubs in Australia, Celtic would probably be top 10. We'd be low end. We're probably 9 or 10 on the list, but we'd be there. Mm-hmm. So let's not beat around the bush. As you're saying, Sean, where's the line? Well, as I said earlier in the pod, there's those tweets about, we should be playing South Melbourne. That's the line for me. I can go see South Melbourne any day of the week. Any weekend I can go 30-minute drive down the road and I can see South Melbourne at that level. That's not worth it for me. I wouldn't fly interstate, have to get hotels, flights, all that stuff to see a team that I can see on the weekend in 3 days' time if I wanted to. But I've personally I've seen Celtic play live in my life 4 or 5 times. I've never seen Celtic versus Rangers in my life. And if for a second I was going to hesitate on that, even though it's not over there, it's not like it's not at Paradise, it's not at Ibrox, so it's going to be different. I get that. But at the same time, it's a good introduction to the game for me. Someone who coming up on 35 years supporting the club.
And we have to also think about what people in Scotland don't realise is it's very different down here. The dynamic between Celtic and Rangers fans, even the like, as in, and I mean, I normally say Sevco, I meant Rangers fans, as in people who are expats to Scotland and or or support one of those teams via whatever other extension. There's very much a different dynamic down here. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've in Scotland, I wouldn't wear my Celtic top out in public unless I'm going to a Celtic game. Like, just wouldn't be done, right? Like, I'd be afraid to get jumped, right? Down here, I can wear it every day, everywhere. Do you know what I mean? Then I might get the odd joking comment about somebody might just walk past and go Rangers or whatever, but like, I'm not in any fear whatsoever down here of violence or not even abuse. I'm not in any fear. It's just a very
It's good natured banner usually.
yeah,
Like, I was
exactly.
in
Yeah.
Brisbane a few years back for a game. We're at a pub, and these Rangers guys are at the McDonald's, like up the walkway after we beat them with the Johnny Hayes goal that game.
Mhm.
And yeah, they're over there. And we're just like out the front going, "Who are you?" and just chanting at them and giving them shit and all this sort of stuff. And they've looked over at us and they just look at us and they just like get red in the face. And as I leave, and it was like flip us a few birds, clap us off, and off they went. Whatever. No punch-ons. We go to a local football game over here. It's not going to be segregated crowds. I could be
No.
sitting next to a Rangers fan, both drinking beers at the stadium. No issue. That's what it's like over here. So it's a completely different culture.
Yeah, and look, we're not we're not any less passionate. We it ruins our week if Celtic lose a game. Like, we still live and die by it, but we just don't have that cultural thing that they have in Scotland with the Goldfish Bowl. And you don't really realise what that's like until you get out. You don't realise how bad that is.
Do you know that you've hit the nail on the head there, Sean? I was going to give an anecdote to that, right? One of my, I mean, I've been with my now wife for 5 years, right? And one of the first times she and I watched a football game together was a Celtic Rangers match on the telly. And she's like, "Oh, so this is this big rival team that you've been telling me about?" And I says, "Well, they were, but then they died." And cut a long story short, I explained to her a kind of potted history using a mixture of Japanese and broken English about what Celtic are, what Rangers are, why they hate each other, why the fans to this day hate each other. And she was like, "So you're telling me people stab each other over a sports game?" I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "You're telling me there are certain pubs that if you walked into in your hometown wearing that top, you would get killed?" I said, "Possibly." She's like, "That is absolutely... How does that happen in the 21st century?" She just couldn't get her head around it. And I realised, to someone who's not brought up in it, it must seem utterly ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Celtic and
100%
Rangers are by
does.
no means unique in that regard, right? Like you say, Leeds and Man United, Liverpool, Man United, West Ham, Millwall, right? These kind of rivalries are not unique to us. But that level of hatred is just utterly pathetic, and it shouldn't even enter the serious conversation when we're talking about whether or not we play a match against a team in another country that's going to bring lots more fans to the club and it's going to generate millions of dollars in revenue, right? This should not even be part of the conversation. But because sometimes we are such a small-minded parochial support, this kind of crap keeps coming up again and again. And frankly, I'm sick of it. Do you know, if I had kids tomorrow, I don't know if I would even have them support Celtic, because I don't know if it's worth the hassle.
That's something I wrestle with. I've got a 2-year-old, and I do think about that. And look at that, and I think being in Australia, I feel more comfortable doing it. But I also think if we're going to go back to Scotland at any point, I don't think I'd want her burdened with that.
Yeah.
I genuinely think about that pretty regularly, like what I'm going to do when she's older.
That's the old Steve Clark comment he made about not wanting to manage Celtic or Rangers or whatever when he was at Killy for that exact reason.
It's
He's
not
glad
worth it. It's not
He's
worth
glad
it.
that he raised his kids down south.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'll give a shout out quickly to Paul in the comments. Thanks for tuning in as usual, mate. Appreciate it. And same to you, Edward, Martin. It's great having you guys comment every week, so appreciate that.
Yeah. Cheers, guys.
Now, Celtic versus St Mirren tonight. Liam, starting lineup and score prediction.
Right, starting lineup. Obviously, Joe Hart in goals. I would persist with Juranovic and Taylor as fullbacks. I think that's our strongest full-back pairing if we stick with it. Starfelt, Carter Vickers. And then midfield. Now, here's where it might get a bit controversial. I would put Hatate on the bench, and I would go with McGregor, Ideguchi, and either O'Reilly or Rogic, depending on whatever one Ange have a mind to play.
You just took me next question, Liam. I was going to say, I was actually going to say when one you were done, I was like, do we need to mix up our midfield a bit, like and release Kelmac by playing Gucci? So
that was my idea.
Stole my next question. Oh, good.
Yeah, Hatate's gone a wee bit off the boil, so I don't think there's any harm in letting him sit a game out, especially a game against a team like St Mirren where he's liable to be booted up and down the park.
Yep.
Up front, if he's fit, Giakoumakis, Jota on one wing, Abada on the other.
Yep.
And have Maeda ready to come on. Either, if we're already a couple of goals up, bring him on for Giakoumakis, give Giakoumakis a rest because we're not sure if he's fully fit. But if we're struggling, there is the option, the radical option, of taking off Rogic and bringing on Maeda and going 2 up front. So
I think we did that once.
We did that once, and it was.
Was it
Can't
St.
remember how
Johnstone?
it worked out. I think it was St. Johnston, maybe, or
We went 3-5-2.
Yeah.
Well, some people have made the point. Postecoglou is not married to formations. He's tied to a style of play, the pressing and the tempo, not the formation. So,
Yeah.
I'm not sure tonight would be the night though to be changing that. Yeah, look, I know that Postecoglou's made a lot of headlines for coming out and praising the team's performances in the last few weeks when we can all see they've been, you can call it poor or you can call it regression, whatever you want to call it. I think that Postecoglou has been saying what he's been publicly saying, what he wants the players to hear, not what he actually thinks.
Kicking their asses behind doors.
Well, maybe he doesn't know. I just think that he's not given his honest opinion or honest evaluation. I think whatever he says is for the players to hear, and whether that's different behind closed doors or not. Because whenever we play really shit hot, he always comes out and says, "Oh yeah, we can get better." Do you know what I mean? Or we can do better. So like the game where we absolutely smashed Motherwell, Dundee United, he always comes out after the game and go, "Yeah, we're going to keep progressing, keep trying to get better." And then when we play poor, he's like, "Oh yeah, we did okay." I think the only time he actually called us was the Wraith Rovers game. I think that's the only time he was honest about us being subpar.
But that was because you could hear him when he was yelling from the
Yeah,
sideline.
exactly. You're right. Yeah, and he was already public at that point. Exactly. So yeah, I think that's a whole different conversation about what Postecoglou says. I think it's the whole never too high, never too low kind of thing. Try to keep the players in the middle. But yeah, we've not got too many midweek games left now. We've got this one, and then we'll have, I think, one more after the split. Is that right? Is that all we've got?
I'm just checking now, Sean.
And then I think it's all weekends after that. So you'd be tempted to go strongest lineup, but I think that with Stephen Robinson coming in as new St Mirren manager, they're going to be get a dead cat bounce from the new manager. They're going to be well up for it. I'd like to see Julian come in and maybe give us a threat at both ends of the pitch in the air. Giakoumakis, I hope, can come back in, but I'm led to believe that he's not quite recovered yet from his sickness and he's more likely to be on the bench. So yeah, and I actually don't mind who goes out between Starfelt and Carter Vickers. It's more just Julian in that I'm concerned about. I'd like to see that. In the midfield, yeah, Hatate needs a rest. O'Reilly deserves a start after playing well at the weekend, and not much. Yeah, look, if Giakoumakis isn't fit, I'd also be tempted to play Abada up front. I thought he looked more of a threat than anyone at the weekend.
Jamesy through the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that actually occurred to me as well. Like Forrest in the middle, yeah, and not necessarily as a striker, but maybe as a number 10.
He's not doing it on the wing, so let's put him in the middle and see what he can do. He's a good finisher in the box. Like, let's think outside the square here.
Yeah, I'd be reluctant to make too many changes, but I think there's space for a little bit of new thinking there. Because
the only thing I'd probably be doing would be, Gucci in the midfield, push Kelmac into an 8 instead of a 6 role. And then go from there. That's all I'll be doing, dropping Rogic, putting O'Reilly in. That's pretty much it for me. Like, the end of the day, it's about the 3 points. There's 10 games left, so 30 points up for grab, so 10 cup finals. Yeah, we get the 3 points, but I want a good performance. I still think we're going to batter a team soon. However, something I was looking at the other day, the current form chart of the Scottish Premier League. We're top of the league in that. Second place was Livy. Third place, St Mirren.
Yeah.
Fourth place was the Huns. So basically, 3 of our next 4 games are against the form teams. So I'm just saying that because I know you love your stats, Sean. So I'm deliberately bringing that one up for you because I half expected you to already have that covered.
Well, I was looking at the league and that 5 points between 4th and 10th. I was like, what is going on here? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's because when they said at the weekend that draw puts Hibs up to 4th, I was like, wait, what? I thought they were relegation fodder here. What is going on? And they're sitting in a crazy European spot.
It's like 4 points in between like 6 teams. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm thinking
it's a hard run of games, isn't it, against the most challenging teams in the league and Rangers.
Yeah, well, the thing is, St Mirren's been in some good form, as we said. So I don't think we're going to batter them, but I think it could be a 3-1 or a 2-0 sort of win for us in that game. Livy away, that's the banana skin game, which we can talk about if we want, or we can just give a score prediction on that. But I think we'll win that one 1-0, and then off we go. But what are you guys thinking for your score predictions?
When was the last time we beat Livingston? Was it like 2000?
We're due.
At Livingston, was it like 04 something like that? Or
yeah, we're due. We're long overdue.
I think it was Vinegar
Pestlink
scored.
We batter, Sean. Imagine if that's the team we batter.
We can talk
8-0. All bets are off.
we can talk about how long it's been since we beat Livingston and Livingston, but we can also say we've literally never beaten them on the plastic in Livingston. So the last time we beat them in Livingston, it was on grass. Derek Riordan played that day. He scored 2 goals.
Speaking of being on grass.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
So, law of averages, but then, law of averages didn't help us against Bodo Glimt. I don't know. I mean, Giacomakis is the Greek Lyndon Dykes, so maybe that'll help us if he's playing. Maybe we wrap up Giacomakis tonight and keep him for the Sunday game against Livy. I think he could be a cool player in that game.
That's what Andrew's saying in one of his presses, that he's touch and go for tonight, Giacomakis, but he'll be good for the weekend. So if that's the case, let's make do tonight and keep him fresh for the weekend.
I mean, look, if you think back to every other game we've played at Livingston, that's the sort of player everyone goes, wow, we don't have, someone like Lyndon Dykes, someone, that's always the chat, always the narrative that comes out. We just have to accept that it's going to be a hard game. It's going to be competitive. There's not going to be good football. The ball's going to bounce horribly. We're going to have to get some decent crosses into the box, whatever way that is, from, inside, outside, high, low, whatever. Like, it's going to be that kind of game. Last game was 40 crosses in the whole game, I think, or I don't know if it was the last home game or
That's
away
it.
game.
We're going for 60 then against Livy.
Yeah, look, and
get in the mixer.
Yeah, and when we lost there earlier in the season, it was Stephen Welsh sold it. I remember that very clearly. This is another reason why I'd like Julian in. Like, we're just not doing set pieces, and these are the games that can make the difference. We're relying on.
Sean, what are you thinking score wise?
I'm going to say 2-1 Celtic, both games.
And Liam, what are you thinking score wise for the 2 games?
We'll win 2-0 tonight. We'll win 1-0 on Sunday.
There we go. Everyone get on Liam's bets because he's been on fire with that lately. So,
hey, I won $1,100 on that Giacomakis hat trick.
And so Sean's the one that's actually made a few quid out of it because I can't gamble in Japan. So go with Sean's bet if you actually want a return.
All right. So
all I do is pick hat tricks.
What we'll do is we'll discuss the league run-in after these 2 games on next week's pod, and then we can just go from there. I think it's been another good episode. I'm looking forward to Celtic Down here in November. Final thoughts. We'll go to you first, Liam.
Final thought. Let me think. I never really thought about a final thought today. I guess I would just say everybody, football and beyond, just needs to sit back and calm down, right? Life's too short to get stressed out about trivial shit, okay? Everybody, just let's start talking, let's just calm down, and let's just make the world a wee bit better together, eh?
Sean?
If Sydney could send us some of the rain, that would be nice. Still sweating balls here, so thanks for that.
And yeah, all I wanted to say was just make sure that if you can be in Sydney in November, get there. We're going to have the big ass Celtic Down Under flag. I've got a good, I think it's a 5 meter by something one. It's massive. Makes the one behind Liam look tiny. So I'm going to need a few people to help us hold that up for a photo. So get down there. Let's make it.
Oh, is that what
happy days.
the old Jeremy Beadle joke? Like, Jeremy Beadle's got a small knob, but on the other hand, it's really big.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Jared's looks about the confusion.
Oh, dear.
I have no idea who this person you're even talking
I'll
about is.
explain it off air. I'm not going to Jeremy Beadle's disability live on the air.
All good. All right. So everyone, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Celtic Down Under Podcast on the YouTube channel and on your podcast app. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Celtic Down. Facebook, we've got a group and a page. Give that a like. And we've got some articles going up on our website. So, yeah. Unless you got anything else, boys. Hail.
No. Hail. You better watch it, cause Beatles about.